light of God's love, we are called to love others. In fact, Jesus says that all the commandments can be summed up in these two. You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. The second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. Mark 12:30-31. But how do we love our neighbor? Paul gives us a practical example in 1 Corinthians 11:5-6. But every woman who has her head uncovered while praying or prophesying disgraces her head. For she is one and the same as the woman whose head is shaved. For if a woman does not cover her head, let her also have her hair cut off. But if it is disgraceful for a woman to have her hair cut off or her head shaved, let her cover her head. You may be thinking, what in the world does this have to do with showing love? Well, stay with me. These verses often give Paul a bad rap. Sometimes with our modern worldview, we can see Paul as a sexist. Why do women have to cover their head and men don't? He seems so dramatic in verse 6 when he says, if women don't cover their hair, they might as well shave it off. It gets even more confusing when later Paul says that a woman's long hair is her glory. Verse 15, but if a woman has long hair, it is a glory for her hair is given for her as a covering. So, if our long hair is our glory and is given to us as a covering, then why do we need another one? It was the Jewish custom for women to keep their hair long, and when they were married, they began covering it in public out of respect for their husbands. Paul's instructions to the first century Corinth church is for all women, married and single, to cover their head. Most women, however, would not cover their hair completely. They would leave tendrils on the forehead or towards the sides uncovered. It was sort of a loophole. I'm covering my hair per custom, but you can still get a glimpse of my glory. The simple idea that long hair was a woman's glory and a shaved head was a disgrace, according to Jewish custom, may be that all that Paul was referring to in this passage. But many historians, including the Center for Holy Land Studies, believe it may have been for a different reason entirely. What we need to take into consideration is the culture in which these Corinthians are living. I'm standing in Corinth at the foot of the temple of Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Corinth was a bustling city full of trade and temple worship. It is a port city and the site of the Isthmian Games. So every 2 years, Corinth was bursting with people from all over the world. One of the main ways of worshiping the goddess of Aphrodite was veneration. This city was full of prostitutes or servants of the temple Aphrodite. These women changed everything about their appearance to better serve the temple. Their skin was bronzed from being exposed to the sun. They wore white to stand out in the crowd. They wore shoes with the Greek word "follow me" on it, so you could literally follow their footsteps to serve the goddess. But one of the most striking identifiers of temple prostitutes was their cleanly shaved head. So, when these women were redeemed and saved, they would cover their heads per custom, but would have no glory to show. Even when their hair began to grow back, it would never rival the women whose hair had been long from birth. So Paul tells the women of the church of Corinth to cover their hair completely. You see, this wasn't Paul being sexist. This was Paul instructing the women of the church to show love towards their neighbor, these redeemed prostitutes. By covering their hair completely, these prostitutes and women of the church were no longer distinguishable. They just looked like Christians. Today, it is no longer the custom for women to cover their hair, but we can still choose to show love to these new Christians, just like it says in 1 John 3:18. Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. And we love because he first loved us. 1 John 4:19. Let us find ways to love our neighbor through our actions, motivated by the love that was shown to us through Jesus Christ.